everyone. Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
It's Jake stealing.
Opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
Who is that guy?
Your mama.
You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in fantasy. Days of the rain.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you Ducks. It's week 9 of the fantasy football season. If you just listen to the podcast, you have no idea what I'm doing, so you probably want to check out the video. And if you stick to the end, you get to even see that this thing makes noise because it's day 1 of 2. See, look, I can make it talk like I'm no one, no way. Next day 1 of 2 of wearing something for Halloween. And tomorrow's even better, meeting. You're going to love tomorrow. I'm going to figure out, you can actually put it this way. If you watch on YouTube, because you can see behind me right here, there's something involved with my costume that I might have to do because there's enough room for it to be caught on camera.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, you might have to see that. You might say, good, I might have to do something with them. Give you a little hint with my terrible Australian hint accent. Waivers today, Meaty. I hope you don't need running backs, right?
This is not available if you do.
There's not
going to find any running backs on your waiver wire.
It's not probably, although there is still one that I think is a smash ad. We'll just jump right into running backs because there's not a lot, and we might as well talk about them. Mostly timeshare pieces, except for number 1, who I want to give you credit for this one main thing. I said I was concerned that Brian Dable loves Devin Singletary, and I was concerned the entire time that no matter how good Tracy looked, they were looking potentially as a timeshare. And you know how I kept comparing it. I kept comparing it to the Steelers, who they played last night. And I said, it's going to be Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, possibly. Najee Harris being Devin Singletary, Warren being Tracy. And in that fashion last year, as much as it was a split, we still wanted Warren/Tracy. It's not even a split to that degree, meaning. And going up against the Steelers, it was 70% Tyron Tracy. And so much so that over 100 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, including on a night where the offense couldn't get much going at all with Daniel Jones. Shocker. And he's still not even 60% rostered. I know a lot of people listening to this show are in very smart leagues, so he's probably not out there. But if he somehow is, I have him in front of Algier, Braylon Allen, Zach Charbonnet, Ray Davis. Those are the top 5, which just tells you how thin the waivers are. But I want to take it another step further, Meanie. So I'm assuming you agree with me, Tracy, over everybody that's on waivers this week, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Would you drop a lead running back like Alexander Madison for Tracy? I already know the answer, but...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How far would you go? How far up this list would you go? Would you go split backfield? Would you drop Zach Moss and Chase Brown for Tyron Tracy? Because that backfield is big. Zach Brown has turned into... Or Zach Brown. He might as well. Zach Moss. I know. That'd be great. That'd be a top 10 running back. Zach Moss has turned into early season Chase Brown because now he's the passing down back. It does actually move sometimes if I open my mouth. Depending on the word I'm saying, it does move. He's turned into the passing down back where Chase Brown has turned into Zach Moss. When you would think the explosiveness of Chase Brown and how Chase Brown started, you'd be like, oh, if he's going to take the lead like Tracy, he'd be 67% of the workload. He's not. He's basically, They flipped the roles. So would you drop Chase Brown to go after Tracy?
Yeah, I think I would move. I think I would. I would try to find a way. It really does depend. Of course, if you're hurting at the running back position, you want to keep him, and maybe you just draw off your 5th or 6th wide receiver. But rest of the season, yeah, man, I think Tracy is just headed for more touches than Chase and Moss. Like those guys are going to continue to split all year. The snap count was pretty even against the Eagles last week. And Zach Moss was, yeah, you're right. He's that pass-catching back. He's the third down running back. He's the guy that they trust in third down situations. I did notice Singletary was out there at the very end of the game. Is that the guy they trust in third down situations?
To
but
close
regardless,
things out.
Tracy is a guy that's going to get a majority of the work. And, yeah, he looks better, man.
Let's pull this up.
He looks
live
much stronger
on this show. And I have to change it from 5 touches as the minimum. I actually have to downgrade that because Devin Singletary didn't get 5 touches. So let me update this. Here's what you have. You have 91% of the rushing attempts went to Tyrone Tracy, 82% of the total touches, third down and fourth down touches, 50-50 with Eric Gray, only one each. And then who else we got? Team target percentage was actually 8.1 to 8.1. So maybe that's a little bit of your concern there is that he still, but they both had 3 targets.
Yeah.
So they're both.
I mean, we
there,
talked
so.
about in the series show his 1.5 catch prop, which he hit, his rushing attempt prop, which I had at FTN after the show with you. These numbers popped up and it was like, you'll never
We hit
guess
on almost
what it
everything.
Was. It was, yeah, we did. It was 5.5. His rushing attempt prop was 5.5. Vegas was thinking he was hardly going to touch the field last night. Maybe thinking along the lines of Singletary and Daboll's, relationship and the match of course being tough against the Steelers. But 145 yards.
They didn't have any trouble running the ball though. That was the interesting thing. As much as the Giants' offensive line clearly struggled, it was still a good run blocking unit, which we've kind of seen this with some teams before. So Singletary actually two for 11, so 5.5, 5.8 per touch. Tyrone Tracy had 6.8 per touch. You know how many yards he had per carry? 7.3.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 9.2 or something. I mean, he has that burst and that breakaway speed, man. I really like him as a back. And then when we talked about him a couple weeks ago, that was my thinking is that skill will just overtake the backfield at times. So I'd like to keep Chase Brown, even Zach Moss, because of what we're talking
let's keep
about.
going.
There's nothing available on the waiver wire for running backs.
Well, yeah, obviously, this is keep if you can, drop a wide receiver, your 5th, 6th wide receiver, make a trade. But some shallower leagues, like I told somebody in the comments a few weeks ago, we try to cover everybody. The truth is like the people listening to us is different from the normal bell curve of people that read our stuff. It's normally 10%. First time ever or barely ever play or just check your lineups once a week, office play, like this leagues like that. You have 10% who you guys know as much as we do. Like it's like you're the experts that just aren't experts. So why are you even listening to us? But we appreciate it. But I'm saying there's a 10% that are that advanced and that good at fantasy football and football. The 80% in the bell curve are the normals. Like, the normals sound so bad. But the normals in football, fantasy, a lot. You rely on us to feed you the information that you don't have the time to go through. So a lot of times in these leagues that we're talking about, we have to try and balance that. And there are some 10-team leagues because I've already seen comments in the waiver wire like, would you drop? So you know what we could do, Meanie? And I don't know what the dinosaur version of this, but look at the last. There you go. Is that good enough? Or is that too much dog-like?
No, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right, so we're already saying Tracy over the Bengals running backs. Would you drop Travis Etienne for Tyrone Tracy?
Ooh, I mean,
I know hasn't come back yet, but I know.
It's a tough drop to drop ETN, and again, we just talked about context and stuff. But yeah, if you need a running back, I would say the rest of the season, Tracy's a guy that can touch the ball more than ETN. And if we're talking volume, that does matter. Volume and opportunity does matter. And Tank Bigsby's done a really good job. So I think when ETN's fully healthy, that is
he turns into Zach Moss for them. Now he's the pass catcher.
Maybe it may be a situation where he gets a handful more carries than a couple of these other guys. Like maybe he lives in the 5 to 7 range, but I would say he touches the ball still like 10 to 13 times with some working out of the backfield, catching some passes. But Tank, I think, is the same sort of deal. Like he's a guy that deserves double-digit carries a game too. And if he continues to run better than ETN, then he's going to get more work.
So
that's a really tough drop, but I think I would if you really need a running back. I think that.
So they're actually the Steelers. They're actually Najee Harris and Jalen Warren of last year potentially with ETN back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about this one? I'm with you so far. I haven't disagreed yet. That's why I'm not chiming in too much. Oh, by the way, also if you go to YouTube, I wore my Cookie Monster going after the Jurassic Park mobile, so it all ties in here.
Perfect.
Really complete package. You got it. That's why Nicole married me. Complete package. So Broncos, I would drop Javonte Williams for Tyrone Tracy. Would you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would. A pretty disappointing performance. He had a lot of good touches on the ground, but still, like, it's no pain.
It doesn't get any better this week.
And other guys. No,
Baltimore,
It
He
does.
can't have a rebound game against Baltimore.
KC the following week too. Yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, good. I didn't even look at the next week. Good God. Javonte Williams did not a buy low. Heads
No.
up. Would you Rico Dowdle or Tyrone Tracy? Like, I think you would drop him?
I'm Tracy. It's Tracy. Yeah, I would drop Rico.
You have to, like, I saw a report yesterday, and it was like Zeke did this and scored a touchdown somehow. Dalvin Cook looked and so don't think there's anybody threatening Dowdle as the lead. Like, Dowdle is the lead? Like, we haven't seen Dowdle officially as the lead because Mike McCarthy won't officially let him be the lead.
One game is what we saw, and it was against the Steelers. One game.
And it was good. Remember the Steelers' run defense? Maybe not that good. Maybe it's everything else.
Maybe it's something to keep an eye on. I think that they are good, but that's, that last night.
Their run defense is their vulnerability.
Jr. Yeah.
It's similar to the
definitely.
Ravens from past years when, I mean, obviously their past defense isn't this year, but past years of the Ravens were tight ends and slot wide receivers because they were vulnerable in the intermediate middle of the field. Now, they just stink against the pass. So the one vulnerability of the Steelers. All right, I don't know if there's anybody else because Bijan, that's an interesting one. Chuba just kind of laid a dud for the second time in a row. And Jonathan Brooks, I mean, they opened his window, so he has to come back at some point, and he's going to be back. I know, obviously, Chuba's too valuable just to straight up drop. But again, context, maybe a 10-team league, your only option is to drop Chuba Hubbard. For Tyrone Tracy, you have to pick one. Are you taking Tracy? I actually would take Tracy.
I would, just thinking that, exactly. Just thinking that Jonathan Brooks is going to come back at some point. And how many good days are headed for Chuba Hubbard anyways with the quarterback play, and they're going to trade Deontay Johnson. So
I've seen better days.
Yeah,
running back days. And then the bottom drops out, which it did. So last one. This is an interesting one. Would you rather pick up and grab Tyrone Tracy or hold/pick up Jordan Mason or Isaac Guerrero with the chance that Christian McCaffrey doesn't come back in a week because they're also on a bye? So this is, you have to make the decision now. Meaning, which do you do?
Probably hold on to those Niners backs just in case.
Both of them?
Yeah. They're just lottery tickets. I think maybe I could maybe get behind Tracy ahead of Guerrero, but
oh, really? I was thinking the other way because Mason might not be 100%, and here's my thinking: is that Mason's out, Guerendo's RB1, Mason's in. This is all assuming McCaffrey doesn't play in Week 10. Mason's in. I don't know that he's in a full workload anymore, and I know it's Shanahan, but because Guerrero, what I tell you, perfect fit in the Shanahan system. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to victory lap some things because I get enough wrong that I can victory lap some really ones where people are like, you're insane. That's usually the ones I victory lap, or where people are like, what are you seeing? What do you think you know? Those are the ones I like to victory lap. But anyway, Guerrero, I think, has done enough to force a timeshare even if Mason is back, because Mason now, this is his second injury, and not just second injury, but this is also the third time he's like left for a few snaps. So that's what, like, I could actually go Guerrero, Tracy, Mason in order from pure upside. But if I need somebody this week, it's Tracy, obviously.
Well, that's the thing. Like, as I was going to say, you're spot on. Even without CMC, I would say Guerrero has cut this into a 60-40, maybe a 50-50 type split. But yeah, if you need somebody this week, obviously, it's not Guerrero. He's the better stash. He's the guy. Like, if you get three running backs, you're looking for the fourth. It's Guerrero.
So, would you rather jump straight into wide receivers, worry report, or power up players?
Let's go wide receivers.
Okay, let's go wide receivers. Mostly because I know Meany's having a good week, and I want to let him have his cake on today's show. So let's go. Wide receivers. Number one at the top. And here's why. Oh, God, this is starting to hurt. It's like pushing right on the middle of my forehead. Like right on that, like where your widow's peak would be, that little apex spot right there.
I don't know how catchers wore those old school catchers. Like, that would have killed, man. Now they got the hockey mask. I had to play
catcher one time, and I was like, never again. I was like, I don't even care if I ride the bench. I am not ever playing catcher again after that one experience. Not to mention, I'm not a germaphobe, but I'm germ conscious. And like, I was Little League. And so it's not like
everybody's sharing it.
Yeah, it's not like they're sanitizing the mask and everybody's sweat and nastiness. And You know that you get that catcher's mask that has like the sweat stain, like you can see the different coloration in it and stuff no,
no.
put a sweatshirt underneath there, and then I'm sweating freaking hell. Oh, never again.
I'm
And
with
I
you.
never did.
Never
again.
liked catcher. Never liked
No.
catcher.
So, but I give him tons of credit. And good God,
Yeah,
what that does to your legs, holy crap, your knees. Anyway,
Yeah.
number one wide receiver. And so number three, let me put a context here, because number three, if I didn't need a wide receiver this week, would still be my number one choice, and that's Juwan Jennings. Because, yes, he didn't play last week, but Juwan Jennings, legitimately top 30 upside. We already saw it without Brandon Ayuk because he is in the Brandon Ayuk role. As we saw with Ricky Pearsall, he's kind of in that role, but as kind of expected for a rookie that was later in the draft and somebody that needs a little bit of development, similar to what we will talk about, number one, didn't really hit in the first game. So I think Debo, Juwan Jennings are clearly the 1 and 2. Clearly, like it is Jennings. And that's why I would have him at number one if the 49ers were playing this week. But because of that, there's only 2 names in front of him. Number one is Keon Coleman. And we've been talking about him, and that's why I say time to develop. We covered this on SiriusXM, talked about it before, was raw, used in the wrong fashion because he doesn't turn hips, he doesn't turn defenders to get the speed upfield. That's what I'm saying. Like he doesn't force, when you hear stacking, because people like to throw out terms, he doesn't stack well because you don't, that's basically what I'm saying is you don't put them on their heels. You don't force them to kind of try and play catch up to your routes. He doesn't run clean, crisp routes. And they were using him as the clear X outside option, which is the number one outside perimeter wide receiver, not next to the tight end. So like I don't know why I put that tone in it because it almost sounded condescending. I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to really explain for people that don't know. But anyway, now he's kind of playing what I said. You remember this meeting? I was like, he needs to kind of be like more like Michael Thomas and big slot-ish, Juju Smith-Schuster for some time, and that's what they're getting to do with Cooper out there now. So I would put him as number one. I do think once Cooper is 80% of the routes, this is going to turn into a headache. This is going to turn into, we're going to try and have to dig into, okay, who's the best? Like the Jackson Smith and Jigba thing from 2 weeks ago. I said, cover 3 destroys Jackson Smith and Jigba. So we're going to have to look for things like that. Like, okay, does the team run a lot of cover 1? Who's the best? Who's the worst? Who's best against zone? Who's best? And kind of do that way because I have a feeling we're going to head towards the Seahawks, and Coleman, Cooper, and Shakir are all start going to get kind of volatile and frustrating. But as for now, I would put Keon Coleman 1, Tillman, who we'll talk about 2, and then Jennings at 3. Would you do the same? Because I'll admit it was actually tough for me to rank the top 4 this week because I like all of them, but they like have so much nuance behind them.
I know it was extremely tough for me too. Even last week, putting in bids, like I was really aggressive with Jennings and McMillan because I agree with you on Jennings. Like long term, he's the better play because Ayuk is out and Debo. I don't know if he can be trusted. Like if you're a Debo owner, you play him and you're just holding your breath and you're hoping that he can stay on the field. And because really, it's been we've seen it's been 3 games now. I think he left once with a calf. I think maybe even 4. Separate occasions he's left with injuries, back-to-back weeks, and of course the ammonia.
Do we need to make a Debo list? Like,
man,
rest of the season? Because without Ayuk on the field, he's been top 10, actually pushing top 5. But
yeah,
there are concerns. Anyway, continue.
His ceiling obviously is super high, and like I said, if you have him, you're playing him. But it's been pretty frustrating. So I think Jennings, like long term, has a significant role, anyways. But like last week, I know I was putting in those bids like aggressive into the 60s in Jennings and McMillan, and I had into the high 20s and 30s. Like I really wanted Tillman as well. And I just wonder if maybe he's the better play over Coleman. Like I think Coleman's a better athlete. I think he's the better receiver, and he's with the better quarterback and the better offense. But if we're thinking that Winston's the quarterback here, the rest of the season,
here's my concern.
Tillman's going to get it. He's just the volume will be there for him more than it will be for
it should.
Coleman.
But here's my concern, and I actually added buy low, sell high to the waiver column so that people can kind of jump ahead and not be in the ranking column anymore. Plus, it feels like a better spot for it. But anyway, I had Jameis Winston as a sell in case people are going bananas. And you picked up Jameis, you probably have a second quarterback. But here's why, and this ties into Tillman, because they have a tougher matchup this week. It's not super scary, but it's also not great.
Yeah.
Then they get a bye week. And then after that, here's your 4-game stretch. Pittsburgh, Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. That's okay for Nick Chubb. That is not okay. Actually, it's not even great for Nick Chubb with Kansas City mixed in there. But it's not good for Jameis and Cedric Tillman. And that's why. That's why he's not number one for me, is just looking ahead at the rest of the Browns schedule is pretty brutal.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. And we like all four of these matchups, three that we're talking about right now, like three of those options, rather. Yeah, I mean, those matchups are awful. 8th worst for wide receivers against the Steelers, 2nd worst against the Broncos, Steelers again, KC's in there, 4th worst. So it is really tough. At the end of the day, the volume will be there. I totally agree with you on Jameis, too, as a sell high candidate. But yeah, I mean, Keon Coleman it's not going to be as good, but you have Josh Allen there and you have a better schedule.
Yeah, for reference, Elijah Moore is down at 10. I did have we'll get to him. I do have Elijah Moore in here. So Jennings, Coleman, and then you're good with McMillan at 4, those 3 in front of him. Like, McMillan's still high up, not number 1 or number 2. Here's the good news. He did lead the Buccaneers in routes run. He was out there in the Chris Godwin role, but I think I brought this up to you yesterday on SiriusXM. By the way, FTN SiriusXM 1 to 3, Monday through Friday. If you don't ever check that out, if you have SiriusXM, should check it out. You can listen on demand, too, if you missed it. I'm with me on Mondays and Thursdays. Then the other 3 days, he's got Dave Martinez. So when I reference that a lot, I realize I reference it a lot of times, and then don't ever follow up and be like,
what the hell?
Like, on SiriusXM, I was just talking to random people. Like, I call in every day. I'm always a call in. So that's the thing, is I think he needs Jalen McMillan. I think he needs Mike Evans. It's similar to what we've talked about with other Keon Coleman in a different fashion. Keon Coleman can't be the one, at least right now.
Right.
Jalen McMillan can't be the one right now.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers at 5. Xavier Leggett at 6. Are you good with those two?
Yeah. I mean, Myers is going to have the volume, right? He's going to have a pretty good game last week.
I have the smirk emoji in there. He's been in there the entire damn season because how many times have I said to you, Chris Meany, top 30 last year overall and points per game and a bad quarterback situation and Devontae Adams on the team. And now Devontae Adams has been gone for a while.
Even like some of his games this season too, like after week 2, it's, 17 fantasy points. He had 762 and a touchdown on 9 targets. And week 4, 10 targets, 5 for 49. Then week 5 against the Broncos, 9 targets, 6 grabs, and 72 yards. And then last week, 7 targets, 6 grabs, 52 yards, and a touchdown. I was ticked. I went to get some in my home league, and I was like, man, this guy really going to get 15 fantasy points against me? But it seems like he lives in that 7 to 17 range, and he should. I mean, his last 3 games, 9, 10, 9, and 7 targets. So he should. I think that's the floor, 7 targets, which is, you can't just leave that on the waiver wire.
Trey Tucker? Yeah, whatever. Number 7, I have Quentin Johnston still in there for when he comes back. And the biggest question here is, are you okay with Quentin Johnston at 7 and Joshua Palmer at 13? Because Joshua Palmer's had 2 good wide receiver 4 games in a row, but I think that's kind of it. Like, I don't see the ceiling. The ceiling is with Johnston. I mean, he could come back and not be the number 2 anymore, but I'm not going to take the chance and be like, whoa, yay, Joshua Palmer. Like, I would just go for Johnston, and if he busts, no problem.
Yeah. I think, again, just kind of put in a context that if you need a wide receiver, you need to start now.
He still might not play this week.
But, Quentin Johnston's the better stash. Too bad for him, and the injury came at the wrong time because he was trending up in this offense, and now Palmer's healthy and Ladd is balling out. So it's tough for Johnston, but he's the better stash.
Okay. Judy at 8. It is just the lesser version of Jacoby Myers. Jalen Tolbert still at 9. It's just Jalen Tolbert, as we're seeing, is going to, like, the Brandon Cooks coming back. I don't think this is kind of like the Quentin Johnston thing. I'm going to still shoot for the upside of Tolbert, but I'm actually more concerned about, put it this way, I'm more concerned of Cooks to Tolbert than I am more concerned. I'm not then I'm as concerned of Palmer to Johnston. Like, I think Johnston should come back as the 2. I think there's a chance that Cooks comes back and messes with Tolbert.
He could. Agree? There's also a chance that he could not even come back. Cooks.
Oh, well, I was going to say, but also they trade? I think the only other team, so Meany and I, again, on SiriusXM, I said with the Diggs injury, if it's anything more than a week or 2, they should be the ones to immediately trade for Deontay Johnson. No questions asked. Send them a 4th. It's just on his last year's contract, so it's not going to be much.
Yeah.
The only other team that I think Deontay Johnson fits is this team is the Cowboys. If the Cowboys want to try and go for it,
Yeah, and they haven't been super aggressive over the last year, going for anything really.
well, that's because Jerry Jones doesn't know what to do. He sits on his hands and then oh, it's not working. I just paid the guys I already had $80 billion, but that's your work, right? Just give the guys I already have more money and see if that works.
Trading back to Pittsburgh, I actually don't think that's going to happen, but he's going somewhere, Deontay.
Hey, so 11, because I already brought up Elijah Moore at 10. I said take the chance because he's not out there as much as Judy, but there is a chance that with Winston and the style that Moore can push Judy. So I still think it's Tillman number 1, but in deeper leagues, somebody to stash, you wouldn't be surprised in 2 weeks. Again, the schedule's not great. But at 11 is quote unquote my boy. And no, I'm not pushing him inside the top 10 because he's still at 11 because he's Josh Downs. And outside of a play where everybody forgot to play defense, would have nothing. Nobody would even be talking about Josh Downs. It would have nothing. The only reason he's at 11 has nothing to do with that play. It only has to do with the fact that if they listen to me and turn to Joe Flacco, the short version of what I went into on SiriusXM, because I don't want to do it again, but I don't think it's the end of the career, and I don't think it's a bad move to bench Anthony Richardson to learn from Joe Flacco right now because he needs to learn. He's clearly not an NFL passer. I don't think that makes it the end of his career like we possibly see with Bryce Young. I think the problem is what Meany brought up a few weeks ago, which I agree with, I thought was a really good point. Anthony Richardson hasn't had the threat of losing his job outside of the injury. It's been, when he comes back, it's his job. It's his job. It's his job. I think he needs that threat. I think he needs to learn the NFL and stop relying on what he got away with in college, really. So that's the short version. 12, speaking of go ahead.
One thing I just want to say is that I think that switch is going to happen.
You do?
You're calling for it? I think it's going to happen. So
can I get some water in here? My mouth is starting to get dry.
I think Josh Downs, I I'm going to scan the waiver wire for Josh Downs. I wish I took a pic of that.
You want a picture of this?
Sip.
There you go. If anybody wasn't checking out the YouTube, that might have been worth it right there.
Yeah, pretty good. I think the switch is going to happen. So if you're a Josh Downs owner, you may not have started him last week, and I don't blame you. You just had him on your bench, and you're probably hoping for the switch to happen, right? It's just like holding on to Hopkins and Amari Cooper and Deontay Johnson. You want something to happen. So where if the quarterback switch does happen, then all of a sudden, at least you got a wide receiver 3, and we've seen wide receiver 2 high in 2 weeks with Flacco there. So if you can't afford to stash him, maybe things will get better because it has been awful for A-Rich, and I don't see how it gets better for him. There's some tough matchups ahead.
That's the other part of it, too. So 12 I have Coker because in case Deontay Johnson gets traded, again, an upside stash alongside, Thielen sounds like he might come back, but this might be also, why not look to the future? Thielen's not part of that plan. I don't know that Thielen gets traded, even if healthy, but why not see if Leggett and Coker are... It's I enunciate the league because we just found out last week it's Leggett and not Luggett.
Yeah, that's what he wants. Leggett.
I know, but it makes you stop because you're like, Leggett. Anyway, Palmer's at 13. Parker Washington, the last man standing, all the way down at 14. Look, he's Wan'Dale Robinson for the Jaguars. So volume maybe gets him there, but it still might take, just like Wan'Dale Robinson, 10 targets to get 80 yards. And even so, this just is Evan Ingram show. And then, down from there, Ricky Pearsall, Demarcus Robinson, Troy Franklin, Yoshevas. Another miscast situation. Yoshevas, you're just hoping for a touchdown, and that's only if T. Higgins doesn't come back. And then Noah Brown, obviously, can't bank on a Hail Mary every single week. And then 20, Rakeem Jarrett, just in case Mike Evans is out 4 or 5 weeks. But
could be some sort of setback. I thought Franklin would get a little bit more run. I went back. Sutton, even though he had the quiet game a couple weeks ago, he was still out there more than any Broncos wide receiver in targets. You talked about the matchups, really tough. True test for Bo Nix, next 2 games on the road, Baltimore and KC. But Franklin does seem like an okay. I see you have it in there, as a hold stash where you can, and I do agree with that.
So the only thing about the Franklin is what you're talking about for that last game. So he was actually behind, not only, he was behind little Jordan Humphrey in routes. He was tied with Bele. That was the concern. What happened?
Big time. Give him a couple weeks and then a bit of a step back.
I don't get it with Sean Payton. Was it just he didn't see enough? I thought they did see enough. What did you expect for Franklin to do? 5 for 50.
I thought he had a
Yeah.
really strong game Thursday night against the Saints. I thought he was really involved in that game. But yeah, it wasn't an encouraging in terms of snaps and running routes. It wasn't encouraging at all.
So I want to do this real quick before we get into the worries and power ups. I want to go back to the Deebo Samuel thing because we were talking about top 5 potential, and we've seen it without Brandon Ayuk. But the injury, and then of course he's on a bye. So I know we're taking Jefferson. I know we're taking Chase and St. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. Are you taking your boy A.J. Brown over Deebo Samuel?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we've got 5. You didn't do you agreed with the other 4, right? There wasn't even like okay.
Yeah.
So Tyreek Hill or Deebo Samuel? Do they let Tua throw some more? I would take Tyreek.
They really should. I don't love the matchup this week against Buffalo, especially the history there between Tua and the Bills. But yeah, I'm taking Tyreek. I think the ceiling's higher. There's been some frustrations, of course, but the ceiling's higher.
Okay. Give you a little hint of what I might be thinking. We might stop right there because would you go Neighbors or Deebo? I would go Deebo.
Yeah, I would go Deebo too. Yeah.
Would you go London or Deebo? I'd still go Deebo.
That one's maybe a little bit closer for me, but I still go Deebo as well. If there was Ayuk still on the field, I probably would go London. But
yeah, of course. Nakua or Deebo?
Oh, man. I think I'll go Nakua. I think there's just something about that guy, like that Stafford just...
Let's remember, he started the season slow with his injury.
He did. It's really close for me.
I lean Deebo just slightly.
Yeah, he's probably... It's a better call because you have
Here's the
Cooper
interesting
Kupp still
one.
there and Kyron who runs all the time.
Right. Okay, so here's the interesting one. Would you wait 2 more weeks?
For Nico?
So, but they're both missing. Yeah, I know they're both missing 1 week. So you're only missing 1 extra game. Well, hoping you're missing only 1. Nico Collins or Deebo Samuel? I would take the chance on Nico Collins.
Me too. I hate the week 14 bye, but I would take the chance too. He was just, man, he was so good. 6 for 117, 8 for 134, 4 for 86, 12 for 151. Like he was just, even with Diggs and Tank Val, and now in question about Diggs. So I would take the risk on Nico. I'm with you there.
But Deebo over Kupp?
Yeah.
Deebo over DK? Deebo over Reed, Harrison, McLaurin, Olave, Wilson, Devonta? Like I think.
Yeah.
So Deebo's 7 at worst.
Yeah. Really frustrating. Maybe you can buy low.
Nico Collins. Yeah.
Maybe he's a good buy low candidate, just given like the absolute headache that he's been. You know, a 0 week 3, 8, 2, 20, 0.
So back to Neighbors. That might not be the worst. I still take Deebo over him. But the one positive I will give is starting this week, no other wide receiver has this cupcake of a schedule going the rest of the season overall, because there is like 1 or 2 iffy in there. But here, I'll read off the rest of this giant schedule against wide receiver or for wide receivers going forward. Commanders, Panthers, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Ravens, Falcons, Colts. Where are you concerned, Meanie? Nowhere.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty good. I think the only concern is that you could have is like, can the offensive line hold up? Yeah, hold up for Daniel Jones. But we got the floor game yesterday from Malik Neighbors, 7 for 71. It's pretty solid. You would have signed up for that. You know, you've been frustrated, of course, with the concussion, but a lot of injuries have happened this year. I think you're, as a Neighbors owner, I don't have a lot of shares of him. I would be pretty satisfied with what I've seen, and even with what I got, like the wide receiver 2 numbers, and you hope that there's some more ones in his future. And with that schedule, there probably will be.
So before we get out of here, the power-ups. Do you want to talk Bo Nix, James Cook, or Kate Otten?
Kate Otten.
All right, we're going to talk James Cook and Kate Otten. So there you go, both your boys. Because Meanie gets to celebrate 2 weeks ago. He got to breathe easy because James Cook has smashed his rushing touchdown prop. Whether you had the 3.5 or even 4.5 at some point towards the end of the preseason, he's past it. You've already cashed. You're living your life for the rest of the season. James Cook, Kate Otten on National Tight Ends Day. Nonetheless, who do you think got 4 mushrooms, and who do you think got the power-up block, punching, and a mushroom?
I think Otten deserves it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otten top 5 rest of the season at tight end?
At tight end? Yeah. Yeah,
Who would
absolutely.
you take
And
over
I think
Otten going forward?
over
Would you still
Otten
take
going
Kelsey?
forward, I would. I had Otten ranked higher this week. I was wrong about that. I probably would still take Kelsey there. I would
Wait.
take
You had Otten
Kittle.
ranked higher, or you had Kelsey ranked higher?
I had Otten ranked higher. I had him as tight end
So
3.
you're right.
Turns out I was wrong. It should have been tight end 1.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess. I
Like,
guess I did have
over
that right, but I
Kelsey,
had,
he's like,
yeah, I did. But I guess what I was thinking is I had Kelsey a little lower than I probably should have. Around
okay,
7 or 8.
so Kelsey, would you
Um,
take George Kittle? He's actually still the number 1 tight end. So I'm
Yes,
assuming
yes,
George Kittle.
yes,
Would you take Brock
yes.
Bowers? He's like 4.
I think I would. I think I would take Otten.
Okay. Would you take Trey McBride? As I try to scratch my eye.
Yeah, I would. I would take McBride. He's been pretty solid. He hasn't scored any touchdowns yet, but can't complain with what he's
They have to
9,
come
8,
around.
7, 11 targets, 9 for 124. Yeah, I would take McBride.
Okay. Healthy Hawkinson?
No.
Okay. So basically top 5.
Yeah. Top 5. He deserves it. All the volume, even when Evans comes back, doesn't matter. He was involved anyways before the 2 injuries, but now you just give the power up, right? Like the huge power up. He's gotten that. So, and Baker's going to continue to chuck, I think. Oh my goodness. Like, because the defense is awful. That's part of it as well.
Yeah.
The secondary's given up so many big plays that Baker's forced to throw the football. He was second in attempts heading into last week, and he chucked it, I don't know, like another 40 times. So yeah. Kate
All right,
Hodden
so
season.
before we get out of here, I do want to get to the worries. There are 3 worries, and the interesting thing is, Meanie, 2 out of the 3 are a smash buy low for me, and 1 is a potential. Nick Chubb, Devontae Adams, and Amari Cooper are the worries. Nick Chubb, I gave a whopping 1 duck. Still had 73% of the touches. Schedule softens up. It is, as you heard, worrisome overall, more so worrisome for the passing game. And Nick Chubb getting that workload as he gets back into form, top 20, probably pushing top 15. So I would buy low because I know people are concerned about him. Devontae Adams, I gave a whopping 2 ducks, a whole 1 more than Nick Chubb. By the way, tight end routes run with Garrett Wilson since he got there. This isn't Amari Cooper. This isn't DeAndre Hopkins. Immediately, he's run all but 2 routes, just like Garrett Wilson. Oh, by the way, he's second in team target percentage and actually first on third down team target percentage. Aaron Rodgers is trying to make Devontae Adams happen. It's just teams also know that. I think it's going to turn around, and I would buy low on Devontae Adams. And then the last one is Cooper. I give him 3 ducks. I would buy low-ish, like especially after what happened last week. But to go back to our Keon Coleman conversation, I don't know this is going to be top 20 like we had hoped because of what he's been able to do in helping. Like, so Shakir sustained. We called that. I know you referenced that yesterday on Sirius XM. Is that don't panic about Shakir should not have been the most dropped. You kept pointing that out time and time again. But I think the emergence of Keon Coleman means that Amari Cooper, not top 20, more of a wide receiver 3. But at least he's a playable wide receiver 3, unlike he was before.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It may turn down just to be a better real life move, which we did talk about the Bills needing to do something, and it has helped out everybody else, right? You're not doubling Shakir, you're not doubling Keon Coleman. Dalton Kincaid is, seeing some one-on-one. He scored a touchdown last week. So I just think it's a really good move for Josh Allen and the Bills. And yeah, you play him as a wide receiver 3. Maybe he has some spike weeks. He's going to play more snaps. He's going to get more involved in the offense. But Keon Coleman has been playing pretty good. And, I think Allen's going to continue to throw to him too. So I wouldn't buy low on Amari, but if you have him, I think it'll get better.
I think you can. I think people are willing to.
I guess now's the time too, right? Probably wouldn't
Yeah.
cost you a whole lot.
No, it
Like,
wouldn't.
would you trade Keon Coleman for him?
For Amari Cooper straight up?
Yeah.
I think I would to chase the ceiling. I
Yeah.
think we're seeing the ceiling of Keon Coleman. And I know it's
Yeah.
excited youth, but also the thing is, I think you could trade Keon Coleman for Amari Cooper and more.
Yeah, you could. I would agree with that too. Yeah, and James Cook, man, like he's having a fantastic season. I only took that bet because it's like, man, this offense is so good. He can't ball in the end zone 4 times, but he's turning out to be an absolute smash pick after what was RB 12 and 13. A really, really good pick, and somebody that I don't have enough shares of actually, because I was concerned that maybe he wouldn't get as many goal line touches or touch red zone touches, but they're just giving him all those touches. So
and they haven't
good for
stopped,
Cook.
which is the interesting
No, they
thing.
haven't stopped. And I thought maybe last week in a blowout game we'd see a little bit more Ray Davis. And that wasn't the case. It was Cook was still getting those touches.
No,
and
Ray
this
Davis,
keeps Allen fresh too, man. Like he doesn't need to be running not like 90% of the time inside the 10 and taking those shots. Like they needed a back that they could hand the ball off to. And as you've seen, Josh Allen has been very efficient. He just threw his first pick last week. Like that's pretty impressive.
You want to see what else this does, by the way, as we get out of here?
Does it light up?
No.
Oh, it does.
Oh, the thing that it lights up with, it actually puts the Raptor thing. There's actually a light in.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. Sick. Nice.
I had to say that just for right through the end and couldn't do it too much because one is you wouldn't be able to hear what I said, and then two is the dogs lose their you-know-what minds.
Yeah.
I do have Dalton Kincaid as a sell high, by the way, for that reason. Is that just I think his involvement. But and then, of course, they actually at the end of the season, they get the Lions, Patriots, and Jets, which actually, because of the way that they're stylistically defensively, one is tight ends don't need to do a much. Do a much? They don't need to do a much especially against the Lions. As we've seen, that's part of the things is like why. And then also similar to the inverse of the Ravens with the Jets and the Patriots, tight ends don't do a lot against them. Similar to the Giants last night. Giants, you can see, struggle in defense, kind of, especially against the run and the bat, like all around. They don't need tight ends, and then also that just is the one area that they seem to somewhat play well. So that's why I said Dalton Kincaid sell high. But Meany over at FTN, over at Chris Meany. Make sure you're following him. Great hockey stuff. My Rangers, they play tonight. Make sure you check them out because they're great. They're fun.
Yeah.
And now they're going to lose because I set that all
like
up.
them tonight. No, I like them tonight against the
Here
Caps.
before we
I
get
like
does the World Series end tonight?
I
Is
think
it already
so,
over?
Yeah.
You do?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they may get one more. They may get one win, but I don't think it goes back to LA.
Do you think if the Mets had somehow made this would be like what 2-1 right now? Like, there's no way this is like either team is getting waxed this bad.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. This is something special happening in LA. Freddie Freeman again. He went like 40 some odd games without a home run, and he's got three in a row.
You know what it is? They stole the Mets magic.
They did stole the Mets magic from them because they were, the Mets were feeling themselves, and the fact that they're just going to be able to have
this is a friendly show. Come on.
the fact that they are able to have a bullpen game today,
and then still, I know,
whatever. Like they got way more out of Walker Buehler than I could have imagined last night. So
they did something. They stole the magic right out from underneath them, and they took it and they're running with it big time. But yeah, magic in hockey if you want your picks, if I could say it correctly, and bets. And we'll be back tomorrow with a different, much better. Just wait. It's great. I'm gonna have to enjoy tomorrow's costume. I know Meany will.
I'll have to partake as well.
From down under.
Rig up. Nice.
Crikey.
Looking forward to it. Crikey.
Dinosaurs and alligators. Get us out of here.
Do one more.